So that guy I met on eHarmony? Yeah. We're out together last night and I step off a curb and snap, heel breaks right off my shoe.
Oh no.
So I say, hell with it, take them off so I'm barefoot, and you'll never guess.
What?
He leans over, takes off his shoes and socks, and now we're both...
You're joking.
Amazing, right?
At eHarmony, you'll find someone you can be yourself with. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up for eHarmony today.
What do you do when something unexpected comes out of nowhere and knocks you off balance? What are the odds that something like that will happen to you again in the future? Would you rather get advice when you're lying on the floor with stars spinning over your head, or be prepared with a plan you can deploy in any situation to be able to stay connected to the best within yourself, even when life is hard and unfair? You're listening to the Health Courage Collective podcast, episode 161, When the Rug Gets Pulled Out From Under You. Welcome to the Health Courage Collective podcast, the show for women who are too busy to slog through hours of generalized, inapplicable, and often contradictory health information, but too smart to ignore that a few minutes of focused attention now can prevent years of suffering in the future. I'm your host, Christina Hackett, a pharmacist who doesn't want you to live on prescriptions, a certified coach specifically trained to maximize your potential, and a compulsive learner obsessed with preventative, cutting-edge, holistic, and integrative medicine. I'm on a mission to increase your physical and mental resilience so you can fearlessly look forward to your next 40-plus limitless years. Your time is now. Let's go. Hello and welcome to today's episode. I hope you are doing great. How are the tight junctions in your gut? I hope last week's episode was helpful to you for understanding what people mean by the term leaky gut and how the integrity of those tight junctions matter to all of us, not just people with gastrointestinal problems. How the tight junctions affect how well each of us age and what you can do to improve the integrity of your gut lining. Okay, so what do you think is the most creative thing you could possibly do? Yell out your answers. I would think of like designing a house or painting a picture, creating clothing for a fashion show, solving a great problem that's never been solved before, like efficiently sequestering carbon from the atmosphere on a massive scale. I know there can be a lot more to creativity than that, like novel approaches to spreadsheets or something. But like most people, I think generally of creative as artsy, but it certainly doesn't have to be. So what's the most creative thing you could do? Keep it in mind. We're going to come back to that in a few minutes. Next, let's take a trip back to your childhood. Did you ever have one of those punching bag things, the kind that you blow up and put sand or water in the bottom? I had one with a clown on it. It's not something I would typically think of my parents as buying or having, but nonetheless, I did have one. Not effective for practicing combat sports techniques, but pretty amazing how quickly it would pop right back up after getting knocked completely flat. When you weren't at home bopping your bop bag, did you have fire drills at school? They always made the day more exciting. In Utah, we also had earthquake drills where we got under our desks and had to hold the legs of the desk so it wouldn't shake away from us. I don't think I ever had a lockdown drill or active shooter kind of drill in school, but I know they have those now. At my kids' school, if the principal gets on the intercom and says, "Will someone please return the red typewriter to the office?" they all know that that means an intruder has gotten in and everyone needs to follow lockdown procedures. It's so sad that that's the way the world is now. We also had the DARE Don't Do Drugs program. Did you do this too? I remember there being a police car painted with DARE and the whole thing. Apparently 75% of U.S. schools in the 90s had the DARE program, which cost taxpayers $750 million a year, and it was used from 1983 to 2009. And it was scientifically proven by multiple studies not to work. Theories about why it failed are that it was a response to politically fueled fear and parental paranoia. It was not created by substance abuse specialists, and that its growth was driven by politicians, school systems, and the producers of the DARE materials, who all received financial incentives for the continuation of the program. Old DARE lessons were usually 45-minute lectures given by uniformed police officers about how doing drugs will kill you. I remember them. kind of. I think for me as a kid, it was pretty black and white. Like anyone who would ever consider doing drugs for 1 second is a bad person with no redeemable qualities whatsoever. I think that's the message I took away from the $750 million a year lectures that I got. Probably not the best ROI. The new DARE curriculum, which is called Keeping It Real, is mostly experiential and role-playing activities among small groups of students. The aim is to improve coping skills, risk assessment skills, support networks, and emotional and mental health. I remember at some point in my young life having someone, I think it was at church, explain for important decisions that will affect your future, don't make the decision when the issue comes up and the embarrassment and peer pressure are on. Make the decision now. Then you never have to make the decision again. It's already been decided. That made a lot of sense to me back then, and it still does. I can see how role-playing practice where you have to stick to the decision that you already made in the past could be really helpful. And of course, fortifying emotional health, coping skills, and support networks. So, what does all of this have to do with putting more years lived in good health into your future? Of course, I want a happy and carefree future for you, full of energy and strength and butterflies and blue skies, but we all know that life comes with pain, uncertainty, and disappointment. There will be obstacles and tough situations in our futures, likely even heart-wrenching diagnoses. You might lose your job, wreck your car, get injured, develop unsettling symptoms, or get heartbreaking news. What works for everyone else might not work for you. You might do everything right and still develop what is usually considered a preventable chronic condition. Then what? What do you tend to do when it feels like life is collapsing in on you? In big ways and in small ways. I think a lot of us tend to make a well-intentioned attempt at self-compassion by allowing ourselves to engage in some suboptimal behavior. We feel like we deserve it, and we end up spiraling down to a place that we eventually have to dig ourselves out of. This can be in tiny ways, not just rock bottom kind of ways. What do you think? Do you ever backslide on your pursuit of your dreams when you're thrown off balance in some way? It's hard. I'm not saying it's not, or that I don't do it too, but what if we had a different response whenever we get thrown for a loop or knocked off kilter? We know it's inevitable. In his new book, Never Finished, David Goggins says, "It's an unwritten natural law of the universe that you will be tested. You will get smacked in the effing face. A hurricane will land on your head. It's inevitable for all of us. Yet we are not formally taught how to handle unexpected adversity. We have sex education, fire drills, active shooter drills, and curriculum on the dangers of alcohol and drugs, but there's no rug just got pulled out from under you class. Nobody teaches how to think, act, and move when disappointment, bad news, malfunction, and disaster inevitably strike. All the advice floods in only after we are already laying dazed on the canvas, which means it's up to you to cultivate your own strategy and to have the discipline to practice it." End quote. I love that. We have fire drills so that we don't lose our minds when the room starts filling with smoke. We have earthquake drills so that we can spring into action and protect ourselves the minute the ground starts shaking. We've practiced these things so that we have an ingrained response ready, even when we're shocked and terrified. And, like most things, being told what we should do in that situation isn't nearly as effective as physically practicing it, especially if you're imagining what it would really be like if the house were shaking apart and collapsing, or there really were a crazy person with a loaded gun walking the halls. My proposal for you today is that you decide right now what you will do if the rug gets pulled out from under you. Then you don't have to decide when you're lying on the floor, bruised, disoriented, and offended, right? I think this could be something major or something minor. Maybe we're only knocked a little off balance temporarily. It's still good to have a plan, an easy go-to. I think it's fine to have some situation-specific tools. Great, even. Phil Stutz and Barry Michaels have 2 books called The Tools and Coming Alive, which are fantastic resources for ideas of specific tools to help you come out of specific problematic situations stronger and better. They're awesome. I've thought of making myself an index card of all of the tools several times so that I can just keep it with me and employ them if I ever start to feel a little icky. Maybe I still will. They have The Reversal of Desire, Active Love, Inner Authority, The Grateful Flow, Jeopardy, The Black Sun, The Vortex, The Mother, and The Tower. Those are the name of their tools. Each of them is useful in certain circumstances, and I do think my life would be better if I could deploy each of them at the appropriate time. The problem is that I'm still too slow at recognizing which tool is the most appropriate one for the task. If I have some time to sort it out first, they're great. But for rug just got pulled out from under you class today, I love what David Goggins says next. Mine is simple. No matter what life serves me, I say, Roger that. Most people think Roger that simply means order received. However, in the military, some people infuse Roger with a bit more intention and define it as received, order given, expect results. When used that way, it's so much more than an acknowledgement. It's an accelerant. It bypasses the over-analytical brain and stimulates actions because, in some situations, thinking is the enemy. End quote. This reminds me a ton of a different Navy SEAL named Jocko Willink. He says, when things are going bad, don't get all bummed out. Don't get startled. Don't get frustrated. No. Just look at the issue and say, good. Now, I don't mean to say something trite. I'm not trying to sound like Mr. Smiley Positive Guy. That guy ignores the hard truth. That guy thinks a positive attitude will solve problems. It won't. But neither will dwelling on the problem. No. Accept reality, but focus on the solution. Take that issue, take that setback, take that problem, and turn it into something good. Go forward, and if you are part of a team, the attitude will spread throughout. If you can say the word good, then guess what? Means you're still alive. Means you're still breathing. That means you've still got some fight left in you. So get up, dust off, reload, recalibrate, re-engage, and go out on the attack. End quote. I think these are both so genius because it doesn't matter in what manner or to what extent the rug was pulled out from under you. Your go-to is always the same. Roger that, received, order given, expect results, or good. That's a great way to respond to getting thrown off balance. The mission got canceled? Good, we can focus on another one. Didn't get the new high-speed gear we needed? Good, we can keep it simple. Didn't get promoted? Good, more time to get better. Didn't get funded? Good, we own more of the company. Got injured? Good, needed a break from training anyway. Got tapped out? Good, better to tap out in training than on the street. Got beat? Good, we learned. Unexpected problems? Good, we have an opportunity to figure out a solution. Those are all examples from Jocko Willink. They're awesome. How do they feel to you? I know a coach who always says, perfect, in a similar way to good. You didn't keep any of your commitments to yourself? Perfect. Now what? What might you say? Imagine yourself the last time you got blindsided. Can you imagine saying, perfect, or Roger, or good? We've talked about bring it on before. Maybe that feels right to you. Or let God prevail. I am a child of God. It just got real. I'm stronger than this. I've got this. This too shall pass. What else? The universe has my back. I like, can I sit with this? Maybe that could become, I can sit with this. I have a cute, sometimes coworker who will if the weather or something else equally beyond her control is not to her liking, she'll say, I protest. Maybe it could be that as long as you know it's ridiculous. I'm sorry to tell you that you have cancer. I object. A high level one might be, what can I learn from this? Or how can I play this role well? I love that one. Let it sit in your mind a bit. I know something good will come to you. You can email me yours at healthcouragecollective@gmail.com. I'd be interested to hear what works best for you. Maybe it could be a phrase from a book or a movie you love. Children, set the table. Your mother needs a moment to herself. I think once you have this single go-to phrase to deploy the moment you're tossed about on the waves of life, you can then step back a little later and use some of the other useful tools that are helpful for specific situations. If you remember the quote from David Goggins, he said, "There is no rug just got pulled out from under you, class. Nobody teaches how to think, act, and move when disappointment, bad news, malfunction, and disaster inevitably strike." This means to me that once we have our go-to phrase or mantra, we know what to think. There's still a little work to be done about how to think, maybe. But following Goggins's logic, we also need to know how we want to act and move. So we're surprised and or out of sorts in some way. The power's out, but we absolutely still have to do our job anyway. We lock the keys in the car. Our son announces he's dropping out of school. Our pen won't write, but we can see that it clearly has ink inside. Maybe all Microsoft servers are out and the world is shutting down. We can say our phrase, whatever it is. I can play this role well. But what really matters is what we do. I talk a lot about this because it's literally life-changing, so I think it's worth repeating again. Phil Stutz teaches that the worse you feel, the more committed you are to your protocol. This, of course, presupposes that you have a protocol. We can get you one, a totally awesome one. But can you imagine that every time you felt a little less than fantastic, you became more committed to doing all the things that make you fantastic? It's so counterculture to what is normal and what feels totally justified that it seems kind of weird. Everyone knows that when something bad happens, you're allowed to look sloppy, binge, be rude, vegetate, generally spiral down. When life sucks, you don't go to bed on time and wake up early to meditate, make a beautiful, colorful salad for lunch, and execute your deep work time blocks with precision. That would be weird. While it's easy to justify a lot of stuff with valid reasons why we deserve a break, if we can train ourselves to see feeling bad, or more in line with today's topic, feeling disillusioned or triggered as a cue to be more committed to our protocol and be more precise with the execution of our plan, we become unstoppable. You do deserve a break, and it would be easy to convince a lot of people that suboptimal behavior is justified. I absolutely think you need more self-compassion in your life, but is the kindest thing you can do for yourself to get in the way of your own progression? Doing what you said you would do is way more satisfying when you don't feel like doing it, or when you don't feel like you even can, but you do. How might you use feeling a little bit icky to remind you to double down on your protocol? I promise it will change your life. Imagine a time when you felt really bad or overwhelmed or exhausted or unsure. Now imagine that being a trigger to get you to do more of the things you do when you're at your best. Get a little glimmer in your eye and harness that upset energy to propel you forward to executing your plan. There's energy in that rug just got pulled out of you feeling. Use that energy like a wind that fills your sails and launches you forward. So, that's how you act when the metaphorical fire alarm goes off. We know how to think and how to act according to Goggins. Now we just need to know how to move. I think we want to move just like that Bozo the Clown we had when we were kids. The time has come to learn how to juggle while riding a unicycle, ladies. Not that Bozo the Clown, although I do actually think that would make your life better if you could do that. The coordination, concentration, balance, and strength required are pretty impressive. But I mean that we want to move like our clown bop bag. Pop right back up as quickly as possible after being knocked down. We could probably get philosophical with this and figure out what our metaphorical sand is that gives us the stability to bounce right back up. Deep. It's okay to get tossed around and knocked down. What matters is that we pop back up, and that's the game. How quickly can we rebound? The faster we can rise, the more extraordinary our life can become. Like, for real. Okay, do you remember what I asked you at the beginning of the episode? Did you even remember that I asked you something at the beginning of the episode? What do you think is the most creative thing you could possibly do? Was it design a skyscraper, produce a movie, write a book? According to Phil Stutz, the most fundamentally creative thing you can possibly do is to catch turnarounds. That's what he calls it when you get knocked off center, feel that you're disconnected from the best within yourself, and immediately recover your power and move forward. Catching a turnaround can be something huge, like having the guts to start your own talk show after being fired as a news anchor and being told that you're, quote, unfit for television. That was Oprah, in case you didn't catch that. Or it could be something as small as eating the healthy and kind of boring lunch you brought from home, even when you're having a really bad day at work. It's for sure recognizing that you feel off kilter and using that as a trigger to become even more precise about doing what you said you were going to do when you said you were going to do it. It's also just noticing the moment you get disconnected from the best within yourself and immediately doing something to get back in alignment and move on. Phil says that the reason this is the most creative thing you can possibly do is because catching turnarounds is the way to align yourself with the expansive force of the universe. It sounds a little woo-woo, I know, but every time you catch yourself slipping away from the greatness that already exists within you and you turn back toward it, you expand into the next best version of yourself. Do it often enough and fast enough, and you'll spiral up into the ideal version of yourself. In his book, Spiritual Economics, Eric Butterworth says, "It is interesting to note that there is mounting evidence for the existence of syntropy, the influence of which life forms tend to reach higher and higher levels of organization, order, and dynamic harmony. Albert Szent-Györgyi, Nobel Prize-winning biologist, refers to it as an innate drive in living matter to protect itself. And today, many are calling attention to a psychological drive toward synthesis, toward wholeness and self-perfection, end quote. A little woo-woo, but I do think we have an innate drive to try to perfect ourselves, and that attempting to do so makes us happier and more fulfilled. Okay, so now we know how to think, act, and move when the rug gets pulled out from under us. David Goggins would be proud. The next step is practicing our campaign. Campaign? Military operation? OP? Response protocol? Tactical strike? I don't know, but we need to practice it. I think it's useful to practice it like you do a fire drill, when nothing is actually wrong. But lucky us, tons of things throw us off our game all the time. So we have plenty of opportunities to practice. And that is the game, my friend. Getting ever so slightly better at recognizing that we're off balance and getting back on target as quickly as possible, all while being gentle and kind with ourselves, but not tolerating any BS. One more quick thing that I think is useful here. Steve Chandler and Brooke Snow, and probably a lot of other people, talk a lot about becoming a creator. To the best of my knowledge, this idea started with David Emerald in his book, The Power of Ted, but I could be wrong about that. Anyway, he says that if you're a victim, you perceive life's challenges as persecutors. You look for rescuers to save you from life's challenges. David calls that the dreaded drama triangle: victim, persecutor, and rescuer. We all spend a lot of time here. The other orientation is to be a creator. When you act as a creator, you see those very same challenges and challengers for what they are: challengers. Rather than try to get rescued, you seek guides who can support you in creating the life you want. David calls that triad the empowerment dynamic: creator, challenge, and guide. One question that can always help us move from victim to creator is, what do I want? Pretty easy, right? Instead of complaining and whining and blaming and gossiping or looking for someone to rescue you, cut through all the nonsense and ask yourself what you want. So powerful. Once you know what you want, the next question to ask yourself is, now what needs to be done? My coach Brian Johnson calls this targeted thinking. 1, what do I want? 2, now what needs to be done? That will move you from victor to creator very quickly while remaining grounded in reality and focusing on what you can do about it. What is your plan for the next time you get knocked sideways like Bozo the Clown? What are you going to think? How are you going to act? And how are you going to move? I hope that you came up with a go-to phrase to say that you really love. Roger that. Good. Thank you for this opportunity to practice my philosophy. I can play this role well. I can sit with this. Whatever feels good to you. I deeply believe that the best way to spiral up is to act more in accordance with your ideal plans, the worse you feel, and that catching turnarounds is the most creative move you can make. Next time you find yourself on the frustration spectrum, ask yourself, 1, what do I want? And 2, now what needs to be done? We'll never be perfect at this, and we're not supposed to be, but I hope you can see how powerful having a rug just got pulled out from under you plan in place ahead of time can be. Next week, we're going to talk about the importance of understanding your estrogen receptors. Until then, be the most creative Bozo the Clown ever, and don't be normal. Thank you so much for tuning into the Health Courage Collective podcast. I am truly honored that you have paid me the enormous compliment of your time and attention. I would be so grateful if you would share this podcast with someone you know and subscribe so you never miss an episode. This podcast is for entertainment and information purposes only. Statements and views on this podcast are not medical advice. This podcast, including Christina Hackett and producers, disclaim responsibility for any possible adverse events by use of information contained herein. If you think you have a medical problem, consult a licensed physician.
So that guy I met on eHarmony? Yeah. We're out together last night and I step off a curb and snap, heel breaks right off my shoe.
Oh no!
So I say, hell with it, take them off so I'm barefoot, and you'll never guess.
What?
He leans over, takes off his shoes and socks, and now we're both...
You're joking.
Amazing, right?
At eHarmony, you'll find someone you can be yourself with. Get who gets you on eHarmony. Sign up for eHarmony today.